Joined now by Paolo von Schirach. He's the president of the Global Policy Institute, an independent research center focused on international affairs. A lot different conversation than the one we had the day before. What is your take on this latest development? Is all the positive momentum gone?
Well, I'm afraid it is. And I go back to earlier comments. That is, the expectations were really too high. And what Vice President Pence laid out is actually the maximum objective of the United States. That is to have a Libya-like scenario. Now, let's reconstruct what that means. Libya did have the beginnings, the rudiments of a nuclear program that unilaterally it gave up after the American invasion of Iraq and saying, okay, we want to be on the good side of the United States, otherwise, we may be invaded just like Iraq. But Libya had very, very, very little. And the idea that in order to have normalized relations, we need to go like Libya, that would mean that North Korea would have to give up the entirety of its program, something that it's been nurturing and financing for decades, which is nothing like, as indeed the North Korean official pointed out, nothing like the size and scope of the Libyan arsenal or program, which was almost nothing in comparison.
So did the U.S. side mismanage the moments leading up to the summit by maybe saying too much?
Well, I think so, because again, by saying the only acceptable outcome of this summit between President Trump and leader Kim in Singapore is how can I say, an unequivocal commitment on the part of the North Koreans to give up everything, that's too much. Clearly, this is the only leverage that the North Koreans have. That is, that they are, unlike Libya, a really qualified nuclear state. They've got the weapons. We know that they have them. We know that they have them. They know that we know. So it's a completely different scenario. And therefore, to put forward this request to say, okay, we're ready to deal with you, and we may even provide, as President Trump indicated, at least in kind of a general terms, we're going to give you aid, we're going to give you investments, there will be American money coming in, you'll be happy, the North Koreans will be happy. All those things have kind of been said, even though in kind of general terms.
So where does this leave the other players in the region? Moon Jae-in, the president of South Korea, was just in Washington this week. Where does that leave China? Will the inter-Korean talks continue?
Interesting question. Who knows, really? I suspect that something may still continue at the level of the two countries. And let's not forget that indeed you've got bystanders like Japan, who are really, really interested in the security of the peninsula.
And reports of Russia's foreign minister visiting the DPRK later
Indeed,
this month.
But Japan obviously is threatened not just like by North Korean, intercontinental ballistic missiles that potentially can reach the United States, but they're right there. So medium-range or short-range missiles can hit Japan if things really go south. So there's a lot of concern, I think, about where this is going to go. Now that there's been this freezing which may be temporary, of relations between Washington and Pyongyang, what can be done to sustain this? There's still some, even though the scenario looks bleak, there's still some achievements. Secretary Pompeo has been there twice. The gesture of freeing those 3 hostages, that took place. This other gesture of, blowing up the tunnels or whatever, the testing sites, some things are underway. Now, is this kind of renunciation or cancellation, whatever we want to call it, of the much anticipated and heralded summit, that we go back to how things used to be, a few years ago? Probably not. But the United States better develop a different negotiating posture. And as I said, many times, my opinion is that it's hard to envisage a scenario whereby North Korea gives up the entirety of its program without tremendous guarantees and reassurances about its own future, because without nuclear weapons, they really have no other leverage.
Paolo von Schirach, we appreciate your insight as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure.